Good afternoon and welcome to Nutmeg Sports on the HA Network. Frank Granito and Kevin Coleman in studio today. We've got a very exciting show lined up. Jeremiah Schwartz, CEO and founder of the Tri-Federation, will join us to talk about the movement that's really overtaking the national sports now is the new and upcoming game, Kevin. It's very exciting, and we've got some footage from a game that took place in Bridgeport featuring all three schools simultaneously this past weekend, so that'll be a lot of fun to talk about. We also, though, do want to start by thanking the FCAC, inviting us out to their golf outing yesterday. Unfortunately, you did duff up the course a little bit more than they expected, but nonetheless, a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. That's the key.
Yes.
Right? Because yes, I did not hit him straight, and but at least I didn't end up in the beach like you did, my friend. Twice, I believe that's what it was.
I did get up and down those saves. Saved the junk right there. We got the Sandy, so I'm looking for that $1 from Dave Schultz whenever he gets around to it. But again, thank you very much to the FCAC. We had a blast. We've got more local golf news coming up later in the show. But for now, let's welcome in Jeremiah Schwartz, the founder of the Tri-Federation. Jeremiah, thank you for being in studio with us today. It's, just from talking off the air, one of the more interesting sports, I think, that ideas that has come around in the last few decades. Take us back to 2006. You're in Savannah, Georgia. What was the thought process in getting all this started?
Yeah, I'm a product designer by trade, and when I was in industrial design school, originally I created the ball, as you see here, tri-ball, as a universal training instrument for athletes of all different backgrounds: Gaelic football, rugby, Australian rules, American football, basketball, etc., and soccer.
There we go.
Here we go.
And I think everyone unanimously loved it. I didn't expect it ever to take off like that. So again, it originally was just the ball, and then what happened was people kind of convinced me to make a sport around it. So I kind of went to the drawing board, and I wanted to make something as unique as possible. So if we ever did take this seriously, fast forward 11 years, we would have a chance of survival. So it's 3 teams at the same time, played on a donut-shaped field. And it's a hybrid between rugby, American football, soccer, and basketball, for the most part.
And now, those original set of rules when you first came up with the game, how much of those have changed over the past 11 years? How much are the same? Where have we come in the steps now in the process of Tri?
Absolutely. Actually, a lot has changed. We've developed rules, for example, the scoring system. We've developed stuff such as the fact that the middle circle you can't actually run through. Over time, we've realized you can't just take Americans and create a new sport. You have to really see what would be more universally acceptable because there's so many different types of athletes and different sports backgrounds that need to be able to inject themselves into this. So it becomes a universal and cultural equalizer. That's the most important part. So yeah, a lot of rules over 10 years have developed.
Now, we see the ball here. Talk a little bit how that was designed. You have the jerseys there as well. Just let's talk about the ball first. I mean, it's unique. That's the big word. Just talk about what went into designing that type of ball.
The tri-ball was designed originally a little bit more tubular than this, and I think when we finally got the version 4 up, we made this with people who work with Nike in Shanghai, China. They really helped us figure out the development of the shape of the inside, which we call the bladder. Most importantly, we like to keep what we call in the ends, the elbows, soft, especially for kids in case it ever does get played by younger kids. A lot of people ask us, well, why don't you make smaller balls for smaller size hands and kids? We say, well, it becomes a little bit more weaponized if you do that because it's such a elongated thing, and these will get harder. So the elbows were designed specifically with a certain curve, but the belly is the most important part. The belly of the ball actually allows it to not wrap around the foot and cave around when it receives full strike from a punt, for example. And basically we took dimensions from a football and rugby ball and kind of meshed them together, and we came up with a perfect sweet spot. What I think is very interesting about the tri-ball too is, as you'll see, right next to the elbows we have the laces. And that's important because a lot of people like to take it like this and tomahawk for shots or even underhand passes. And originally when we played in rainy conditions, whether you're holding it and you're about to get wrapped up or not, it's allowing you to kind of get it out of possession just by the flick of a wrist. So.
And you talk about those tomahawk shots. So you've got the nets on opposite ends of the field. There's the circle in which you've got to shoot from. What does the scoring system work like now for Tri as you get into the game?
Well, that's one of the coolest parts, I think. The scoring system, and I'll get back to that in a second, it sets up diplomacy. There's no sport, in our opinion, in the world that really has an element of diplomacy. I'm talking team alliances. So, for example, what you saw in the last game last year and also this year, it was Central and Bassick teaming up against Harding. And that's really interesting because if you were to score on me, you would get 1 point. I would go -1. And you'd still be at 0. So 1, 0, -1. If I scored back on you, I'd go back to 0, and you'd come back to 0. So quite frankly, it's the only zero-sum scoring system in the world. Again, allowing alliances.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned alliances. How often do you see that? Is it something that you would recommend? Because I know it's also, how hard is it to communicate with your teammates? Because it seems like it's such a large field. You talk about that inner circle you can't go into, a lot of directions. You can go anywhere you want, really.
Right.
And it kind of is almost like basketball, football, rugby in a way. So how hard is it just to communicate with your teammates and be on the same page?
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge because the whole sport by design was developed to challenge the athlete and make sure that people are becoming more analytical. And so we knew going into this that it's going to be very difficult to form alliances because it's not necessarily all the time you'll see someone raise their hand or call out another team and say we're working together. It might just be one player on the field that has a good connection, makes that pass to central player, and they score on Harding. But either way, if Harding comes down, it's good for both of us. What's really interesting about the alliances and what makes it tough to figure out the diplomacy is that you can make and break them at any time. So we see alliances happening a lot to kind of rebalance out the game and redistribute the balance of power, but they get broken all the time, which is where at the end you'll see a couple teams get salty, which is always good competition.
I was going to say, so you're combining rugby, football, basketball, and politics.
Yeah, exactly.
Is what we're doing here. No, and we'll come back to the Bridgeport school game because I think that's really important for the landscape of where the game has come to now. But you've got this jersey here, which is going to represent the amateur league. You guys have got a big game coming up. Connecticut, New York, Rhode Island. We're obviously all rooting for the Nutmeg State, at least in this studio. But talk to us a little bit about what we can expect at the amateur level, what your goals are at this level, and what alliances might be like in a game like that.
That game is particularly interesting. The adults have played full contact for a while, and I think we're going to start pioneering a single-hand touch option for a lot of people because we want to open this up to a lot more people to be involved, especially when you're 28 going on insurance. That's another thing that you have to consider. So with the games New York, Massachusetts, Connecticut, even Rhode Island, we're trying to expand from that one game to a 9-state league, which we really intend to be up with investment no later than November, and I think next summer is when we're going to release it. That particular game, however, really kick-started the momentum for a lot of the high schools to follow in the footsteps, especially the football teams. Because when they saw the speed limit, the vision of how the adults play it, and they saw a full game, plus the branding that the players really take pride in, I think they realize that this actually has legs. This is something more than just a PE pickup game. The adults are all amateur or former Division I athletes from NCAA, soccer, American football, lacrosse. It's kind of, again, a hodgepodge of all these different types of athletes that come together to explore or pioneer a new frontier in the sports industry.
Now, not just outside of New England, now you look at, it's national now. Is there a certain area, not just, obviously in America too, is there a region here that you found that it's really been taking off? But not just that, how about outside? I know you've been to China. We spoke off air about, your experience over there. What's really been that one area that's really stuck out to you the most so far since 2006?
Since 2006, we spent a lot of time in China. Asia is Shanghai, where I lived as an expat, was fantastic because it's such an expat community that you're able to literally pull athletes from all over the world and have a tournament right there, from the comfort of your home. We could do it every single weekend, but we really focused on getting much larger and larger build out so that we could get sponsors such as Budweiser, which sponsored 2 years in a row, and other brands such as Coca-Cola backed us. And after China, we realized that we still need to be back in the American market. nothing beats an 8 to 11% annual GDP from the sports industry. That's America. The North American market, the northeastern region of the United States, especially New England, accounts for such a large area of wealth, and also it's so densely populated that we realize with all these small states, we can travel in and out within 6 hours and have 4 games up in a single weekend, or a tournament every weekend. In addition to that, California has really been taken to this. Texas is next. We actually have a meeting with the entire city of Austin through Austin Independent School District, and they're interested in perhaps purchasing membership and the equipment for all their schools, which would be 31 middle schools and high schools. And then Florida. I think it's the all year-round weather states that will really take to this.
Well, it's certainly growing at a rapid pace. We're excited to see it expand. We're going to step aside on Nutmeg Sports when we get back. Jeremiah has brought us some highlights of the city game featuring all through Bridgeport schools. We're going to talk about this tri-game more at the high school level. That's coming up next on the HAN Network's Nutmeg Sports.
Give your day a jumpstart with the latest news, sports, weather, and more on Coffee Break, live on the HAN Network, weekdays at 11 a.m. Connecticut news doesn't get any more local than on Coffee Break. You don't have to go far for authentic Neapolitan cuisine and renowned wood-fire pizza. Pizzeria Loretano of Bethel is a contemporary Italian bistro, specializing in authentic wood-fired brick oven pizza Napolitana. Pizzeria Loretano was named one of America's top 1,000 Italian restaurants in 2008 by Zagat, and recommended by Jane and Michael Stern on National Public Radio's Splendid Table. Located close to the Bethel Cinema, we focus on quality, and our food is always made to order. Join us for live jazz Sundays from 6 to 8. Find our schedule, menu, and more at pizzerialoretano.com, and like us on Facebook.
The new fishing season is fast approaching, so it's time to head over to the dock shop and get your gear in order. We're now offering bait in both Darien and our Westport location. The dock shop can service and repair your rods and reels, spool up new line, and fill any empty space you might have in your tackle box. Whether you're a fisherman, boater, or beach bum, the dock shop is a unique place to shop. The dock shop, 51 Tokenique Road, Darien, 609 Riverside Avenue, Westport, dockshop.com.
Spring has sprung at Walter Stewart's Market, and we're celebrating the new season with fresh takes on spring. From the finest produce around to guaranteed fresh seafood delivered daily by the best local supplier. Not only are we your time-saving one-stop shop for everything you need this season, our personable team is always ready with a helping hand. Shop Stewart's for the best of spring. Find us at 229 Elm Street, New Canaan, or shop online at stewartsmarket.com.
I can't believe it.
Well, Dad, you did it. You sold 160 cars. Ready to go back upstairs now?
I think it's time. I wonder how the boys are making out in their new office. Not what I had in mind, Kyle. What, Dad?
Maybe we should retire. Right now, lease a 2017 Rogue S for only $139 a month. Isn't it time you got Millerized?
I'm John Kovach. I'm a newspaper editor. I'm a high school football coach. I'm a television presenter. And I want you to love fishing as much as I do. Tune in to Yankee Fisherman, Thursdays at 1 on the HAN Network. It's like going to the tackle shop without leaving your office.
Back on the HAN Network's Nutmeg Sports, Frank Granito, Kevin Coleman with Jeremiah Schwartz here of the Tri-Federation, as we're going to take a look now at some clips from the inaugural Tri-Game in the U.S. at the high school level that was in 2016, featuring 3 Bridgeport schools, Warren Harding High School, Bridgeport Central High School, and Bassick. We'll have clips on the 2017 game later in the week, but Jeremiah, just talking about last year's game a little bit before we look at it, what did it mean for Tri-Federation to see this game played at the high school level, especially in your home state?
Yeah. I love the fact that we get to bring this to Connecticut first, and that we're developing also not just out of Connecticut, but Fairfield County. What's particularly interesting about this, though, is we're working with Bridgeport, and I think we've identified that there's a market, an underserved market, that really has taken to this, because they usually get passed over for a lot of first opportunities and stuff. And I think they have taken this to the heart, where they get to be in a leadership role and bring other schools to their city and be able to provide that experience to other student athletes in other high schools. I know they've called out a lot of schools such as Colby Cathedral, Stanford High, Danbury, and other schools in New Haven. Should be pretty big rivalry if they can ever get that over to them. So,
well, we were just talking off the air too, and we'll get to this after the package. But the idea of potentially this being a co-ed sport and some of the female athletes around here, there's certainly within the FCX conference a lot of X factors that could come into play. But let's look at the highlights from the 2016 inaugural Tri game here in Bridgeport, Connecticut.
Game in the country today, so you guys are part of something special.
And that again was in 2016, the first game played. Jeremiah, talk to us a little bit about where you guys have come now in just a year's time and what your goals are for Tri, at least at the high school level, moving forward now.
Yeah, I mean, since that game that you just saw, like, we've astronomically expanded, and we're going to be in Austin. We already are in Florida. We're in California and Oregon. We've got universities across the country as well. But what I think is really exciting is that we're working with schools, a lot of schools, and by winter we should be at 100 schools. What we're getting in feedback from these schools as well is on the applications, and even after they start playing for physical education, they're giving us reports of how many people are playing, how many participants a year. The average school is about between 400, 450, so it's about 435. And at that rate, if we hit 100 schools, we're going to be just shy of 50,000 participants. Wow. Which is, yeah, it was shocking for us.
Is there a certain region in this country that you haven't gone to yet and you want to be there?
Midwest.
Midwest.
The Midwest is, in my opinion, markets like Chicago and Detroit, but Ohio, also Ohio would be fantastic with their football passion. But then you get to states like Wisconsin, and rugby's out there. And we're kind of slowly riding the tailcoats of rugby because I think a lot of people think that we're similar. But when you can offer a sport, and again, with the vision that we're trying to produce for a lot more people to be involved, we're not going to be doing the contact at the school level. We're going to be doing touch. And I think this sport, in comparison to rugby, and I love rugby, I played rugby, but as a sport for the American market, it's not always the easiest thing to watch. We like variety in plays. We like the kicks. We like the distance passes, the receptions. And this game is something that provides a little bit of everything for everybody, but it also allows someone in Wisconsin or the state of Wisconsin to play against New York and Texas and possibly win. And that's something that's going to be very difficult for many teams in traditional sports because they're so coded and there's such a structured ethic for how you play that usually the dominant teams will continue to win. This is something that changes that.
You're right, and this is a game that is going to put the best athletes on display. I think that's the vision to it, and it's a game at the same time, though, that allows equal opportunity for players to be elite. And we were just talking during that video, you think this could potentially be one of the true breakthrough sports at the co-ed level where if it's designed as a one-hand touch game, the male and female discrepancy is not as far apart as you would see in almost any other sport.
Absolutely. This should be seen as the first premier example of co-ed sports. We want to push a professional league one day at the co-ed level. And we're actually going to drop the word co-ed because I think it comes with a lot of negative connotation. We might just call it mixed gender or mixed. A lot of guys might say, I don't want to play co-ed because they still think about flag football and what that looks like. The problem with flags, even though you just saw an example of flags, it might work at some levels if it's only a single sex type of game, but it's a moving target on a moving target. And what we really want to do is design out any physical advantages that the guys have and make it purely about the athletics and performance. And again, as you were saying, there's a lot of girls in Fairfield County area that would really give all the top athletes in this county a run for their money.
Oh yeah, I mean it's very unique, and you're right. I think making it a one-hand touch sport too does take away that, and it's just the hesitancy. I think is what you would say from the female perspective, where you've really got to sort of break down and try to grab that extra moving target, and that's just a little much, I think,
right,
when you're adding that kind of a thought process. Jeremiah, we'd love it if you'd hang around with us for one more block. We'd actually like you to break down some of that film we were just seeing.
Absolutely.
Go through some of the rules. So we're going to have that coming up next on Nutmeg Sports on the HAN Network.
At In Sports Trumbull, the game is always on inside. Registration is now open for our fitness training programs for high school athletes. The In Sports Performance Center is offering blast speed classes, athletic functional movement assessments, and both men's and women's elite speed and strength training. Our premier programs help bring athletes to the next level. Call 203-268-1214 for more information. You can follow us on Facebook.
If you've ever thought about owning a motor coach or learning about what it's like to travel the open road in superior style and comfort, then contact Dave's RV Center in Danbury, Connecticut. Offering the best quality Class A motorhomes from Newmar, travel trailers and fifth wheel lines from Surveyor, and a hauler line from Work and Play. Choose from Newmar's Gas Line, Baystar and Canyon Star, or from Newmar's Diesel Line, Ventana and Dutch Star. And with unparalleled service and maintenance, Dave's RV is committed to keeping you and your motor coach safely on the road and enjoying it to the fullest. Stop by their showroom, 2 Industrial Plaza Road, Danbury, Connecticut, or call 877-483-3866. If you're watching this broadcast, you're not alone. The HAN Network is available for 200,000 Connecticut cable customers on the Frontier Network, and we've also reached more than 2 million viewers on our free live streaming sports, news, and entertainment broadcasts. To reach our rapidly growing audience, contact Advertising Director Jessica Murrin at 203-273-7312 or email jessica@han.network. Give your day a jumpstart with the latest news, sports, weather, and more on Coffee Break, live on the HAN Network, weekdays at 11 a.m. Connecticut news doesn't get any more local than on Coffee Break.
Back on the HAN Network's Nutmeg Sports, it is Tuesday, June 20th. Frank Granito and Kevin Coleman are joined by Jeremiah Schwartz in studio. He is the founder and CEO of the Tri-Federation and Tri-Ball. And we're going to take a look now, Jeremiah, at that film again from last year. And I just want to have you sort of break down some of the rules and what we're seeing as we'll ask Mike to cue that up right now. Mike. I'm assuming that's a goal.
Yeah.
But so you've got this crease line right over here, Jeremiah, 5 meters apart. What was the inspiration behind that crease for the shooting space?
As I said in the beginning, the try is taken and inspired from so many different sports, and that crease was really taken from team handball. And what I love about team handball is when you watch that game, you see a lot of aggressive and very athletic movements and throws that you wouldn't see in other sports. And with this crease, it makes the defense much more aware of how many threats are coming at them. You have a distance threat. You have a player who can get right to the line or cross the line and actually make a shot from an angle. And that's a very difficult thing to defend. So,
so we're talking there now, and we got the video running here. So as we're going through this, just take us through what we're seeing.
So what you see here is this is an example of a mid-distance shot. He's basically, both of them are getting to the line, and as you see, it's very difficult to score because it's like a 3-step process. You bring the ball back over your head, and then you have to shoot forward while you're running on top of people chasing you down. So a lot of people try and get close to the line, but eventually you're going to see a lot more distance shots, such as basketball. Now, what's great about this is you see a lot of change in direction, as you see right here, and that's really important. That's how we can prove to schools that this is much more of an education than a pure competitive sport. So we're really able to align parallel with football programs and rugby programs to get their athletes, one, more physically and cardio endurance, and then also, two, more analytical about the situations that they put themselves in. And that's important because we want to help limit the scenarios in which injuries could occur. Again, change of pace and direction is a great training activity for halfbacks and even wide receivers to break out on a route. Defensive players, as you see here, blocking is legal as long as you don't knock a man to the ground. It's also very important to work on those moving blocks. Your feet never stop moving because you're going to be playing 30 minutes
So is it
per
kind of
period.
like basketball? Can you set your feet and set a pick like that? Is that
Absolutely.
allowed?
Yeah.
Even
We
if you're
encourage
not moving
picks.
your feet, you can set a pick.
We actually say if you're going to set a pick from the side, you have to plant your feet. But if you're coming from the front, I still can't knock you off your feet, but I can do a forward push.
Okay.
And I can drive you back if I'm basically protecting my ball carrier behind me.
I mean, this is one of the most multi-directional sports that I've seen, and you're right. You talk about how it's so familiar, similar with football, with running backs, changing speeds, going instead of north to south, east to west. Now, how often do you see football players exceeding at this sport?
Well, when we came back from to the United States, most of our athletes that we had worked with in the past were rugby players. When we came back to the United States, we were actually really excited because you have such a diverse population of athletes. But football players, primarily in this country, are the ones that have really taken to it because you have, again, in football, so many different types of skills. I would say the second sport that really took to it was basketball. As you can see, a lot of those passes, it goes from football to rugby to soccer when the ball's on the ground, then to basketball with the chest pass and the shots. And we really wanted to make sure that you could actually have a game, football versus basketball versus soccer, with those three sports against each other, and everyone would bring their own influence and skill sets, but they'd all be equalized. So it's really hard to say that football players are better than other athletes at this sport. It's just we've had more access to the football team so far.
Well, and you talk about the access to football teams, and for me, this is, and I don't know how you guys have thought about it, but the potential of, with the way the game is going right now and the fear of injuries, the violence of the sport, especially at the high school level, the hesitancy now that surrounds activities like spring football or camps over the summer, this seems like a potential where you could go to a school and say, hey, instead of your traditional 10 spring practices that end with a game, what if we set up something like this? And you maybe coordinate 3 towns or 1 city and 3 schools like we did with Bridgeport, and it is just that off-season training program as you guys pitch it.
Exactly, and that's exactly what we're trying to get to. We want next year, what we're trying to do is open up at least a 12-school tournament, interscholastic tournament. It would be most likely right after school ends in the summer, and we kind of want to carry over and transition on behalf of the schools. We we run all the production and handle the event, so we handle the insurance. Schools are held harmless. But instead of these spring practices where you're playing against yourself internally, or you dread going to the 3-a-day football camps in the August heat, this is something that offers vested interest and stakes. You're going to be playing, let's say, games Wilton versus Ridgefield versus New Canaan, for example, which I think you guys would enjoy.
Ooh, that would be interesting, my friend.
But the best part is it's kind of like a round robin where you also get games against all these other Fairfield County teams. Small schools and large schools alike, because no one's really better than anyone else yet. And we've proven that it's an equalizer. So again, we do want to align ourselves parallel to the football programs and soccer and rugby. Whoever goes in fall, I think summer is going to be our season, and especially for co-ed. That's going to be really interesting.
Yep.
Well, I was going to say that this is maybe finally a sport that you and I can finally agree on, since it has the American football, has the soccer in it.
Well,
there you go.
Well, that's the one thing I wanted to ask. This will be my last question here. So the combination of soccer, football. Now, let's say a ball. We're going to pass a ball here. Kevin and I are on the same team. I miss a pass. What happens from there?
If the ball hits the ground, it's still playable. And unlike in rugby, it's not a knock-on. So if you drop the ball forward, you can keep playing. It's live. Now, if I go down and get the ball and I pick it up, even if my knee is down, all you have to do is give me a two-hand touch, and it's automatically yours. So what's very interesting about this sport, and again, what keeps it much more educational, much more analytical and diplomatic, is it's an automatic turnover. If I have possession, and you give me a touch or pull the flag or whatever level we're playing, it's automatically your ball as a free throw. What's interesting about that is it's a great workout, again, as an off-season training sport for basketball, football, rugby. It's really working on offloading the ball and passing as much as possible, rather than seeing star athletes run it up. And you will have that opportunity because it's a long diameter of a circle, so there's lots of space, open running space. But that's also great because it really focuses on open field tackling drills and stuff like that, tracking down and closing in space. What we love about the shape of the field as a donut or a circle, there's no corners. So you can't just run it down the line and squeeze it over the pylon. You really have to think about how you're going to approach any goal when you're making an attack, because it becomes a bowl effect where you have to come to the middle as close as possible before you take that shot. So it gives the defense more of an advantage, but at the same time, it's basically you against the goal. All you got to do is take that shot, and however accurate you are, good luck.
So, well, Jeremiah, thank you so much for coming in today. It was an absolute blast. We're looking forward to following along. For those who want to know more about the Tri-Federation, where should they go to?
Trifederation.com. And I think also, will you guys have video of the co-ed?
We will play that video.
Excellent.
From the 2017 game featuring the Bridgeport schools moving forward. We'll continue to follow along with you guys. But Trifederation.com. Again, Jeremiah Schwartz, founder. We had an absolute blast having you come in today. We're actually going to take that ball, go out to the parking lot. I've got money I can catch 5 of your punts now.
That's going to be some good B-roll, my friend. See about that.
For Jeremiah Schwartz, Kevin Coleman, I'm Frank Granito. We thank you for tuning in to Nutmeg Sports. We're back tomorrow at 2 o'clock, but as always, 11 a.m., coffee break with Kate Jablonski. See you then. It's good.